Hey, welcome once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. As on Mondays, we go around the NHL. I'm your host, Aaron Bloxel, with my co-host, Mr. Matthew Balzer. And if you haven't seen it yet, you can watch our last episode from Friday on either our Facebook channel or YouTube channel at B&B Hockey Talk, where we talk about the Vancouver Canucks on Fridays. It's our B&B Canucks Friday. And today is around the league. So lots of stuff happening. Let's jump right into it, Matt. Let's start off with this week's first, the three stars.
All right. Yeah, so we have some really big hot hands going around right now. The third star was Jack Eichel, 5 goals, 9 points in 4 games. The guy's been an absolute monster. He's up into the top 5 in league scoring and is slowly but quietly putting himself into that Hart Trophy conversation with the way he's been playing of late. The second star, Mark Scheifele, 5 goals, 11 points in 4 games, including back-to-back OT winners. That big one against the Tampa Bay Lightning yesterday, which was a heck of a hockey game if you missed that one. But yeah, that Scheifele, it's just like, I think I had him at number 6 if I remember my top 10 centers of the league, but he's slowly but surely climbing up that list in the way he's gone so far this season. And the first star, Mr. Alexander Ovechkin, 7 goals, back-to-back Hatties in only 3 games. Just a crazy week, up to 29 goals in only 32 games, on pace for 74 goals this season. And he's 33 years old and on pace for his best offensive season since that 65 goals, I believe, in like his 4th year in the league. So I think just winning that cup, it's just like he's got nothing on his shoulders now. He's just going out and playing, and you think after all the partying after winning the cup, he'd have a bit of a slow start, but he's just been getting better and better.
Let's talk next about the mess in Philadelphia. Yesterday, a report leaked saying that they were firing Dave Haxtell, their head coach, and had hired Joel Quenneville. The team came out and said, no, nothing happening here. And then last night, they actually pulled the trigger. Or maybe it was this morning, I think. Yeah, it was this morning they pulled the trigger. But no Joel Quenneville. What's going on there?
Yeah. So there it was originally reported that they were going to fire Haxtell yesterday and bring in Joel Quenneville, but I guess nobody really talked to Joel Quenneville's camp about that. And then I believe it was Darren Drager that came out and said, yeah, it's like Quenneville's not going to Philly at all. And then this morning, they dropped the axe, and then they firing Haxtell and then promoting their American Hockey League coach, Scott Gordon, as the interim coach for the time being. Haxtell, it's just like they just ended that big long West Coast road trip on Saturday in Vancouver, where they got their butts kicked 5-1, and the night before they got their butts kicked by the Oilers. So they're dead last in the Eastern Conference at 12-15-4. They just called up Carter Hart, which will be their 6th goalie that's dressed for Philadelphia before Christmas this season, which it's a mess. Carter Hart, we'll see. He is their goalie of the future, but I sure hope they just don't rush him. And I see Michael Neuvirth coming back. He missed the end of the road trip because he had a kid that was born, so he had to fly back to Philly to be there with his wife. It's an absolute mess in Philly right now. We'll see what Chuck Fletcher will do with that goaltending situation, and if he's going to start to move guys like Wayne Simmons, who is an unrestricted free agent coming up, and if they go in a rebuild direction.
Let's talk about the other mess right now in the NHL. And it's funny because both these two teams you wouldn't have thought would be a mess at the beginning of the year. But, man, things are not working out in St. Louis at all. New coach, new voice, and same results. They lose and get hammered 7-2 to Calgary. And they fight in practice. There's obviously something poisonous in that dressing room. What do you think they're going to do moving forward, and do you see their team staying intact?
Yeah, I think that basically everybody's been made available apparently. Like even Tarasenko's name's been thrown out there. which is crazy to think that St. Louis would even think about moving him. But I think Alex Pietrangelo has been at the top of the list. And, of course, as soon as a big name superstar defenseman comes up, they're automatically linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the Leafs do have some options depending on what they want to do, especially Kasperi Kapanen, I think, is the most intriguing name on what they're going to do with him, especially with Nylander back, and then having to go manage the cap with Matthews and Marner's contracts coming up, along with Jake Gardiner, seeing if they're going to re-sign him or not. That's going to be a lot of money that's going to get thrown at those players. But yeah, it's like they got Morgan Riley, who's tied for the league lead in defenseman points with Chabot and Giordano, and John Carlson. They're in a four-way tie with 35 points. They got that big guy in Riley, but they don't have like that really big true number one defenseman, especially on that right-hand side. And when you got Ron Heinze as your top pairing number one with Morgan Riley, you want to improve there if you can.
So I asked you about St. Louis, and we talk about Toronto.
Yeah.
Fans would love that. But let's talk about Toronto. I mean, I think Garrett Sparks might even be on that list if St. Louis were to pull the trigger in a package deal, as they could definitely use some help in goaltending. But interesting thought that came across this weekend to me was that potential 3 general managers might be colluding in the future to all put an offer sheet towards all 3 Toronto big RFAs that are going to be coming up, which would make Toronto not be able to afford all of them because of cap space troubles. Do you like that idea, or do you think there'll be a lot of retribution, or does that? I mean, I guess that means Toronto will get a ton of draft picks back too.
Yeah, well, I think Kyle Dubas came out and said there's no way they're going to be losing anybody, that they've sort of figured things out, I think, and how to manage that. But yeah, it's like if I am opposing teams, I would be throwing everything at those guys to get one of them, especially if your number one's going to be Matthews to keep. But if you can get Marner and throw like $10-11 million at him, then things will get interesting on how they're going to do that. Or it could force the Leafs to trade a guy like William Nylander, who Dubas said, "Oh, we're not going to trade you," but that means absolutely nothing. Once when it comes down to the itty bitty stuff, then it's like they're going to move on for the best options for the team. But yeah, the thing is, there hasn't been many offer sheets in a while. But if you could collude and go after both of those guys, I would. But the thing is, it's just like the repercussions of it and losing all those draft picks and everything. It's really tough.
Because I know the word on the street is Arizona is definitely going to do whatever they can to try to bring in Austin Matthews, being a Phoenix or Scottsdale boy himself. They're looking for the big draw and the big name player. Lots of not lots, but a few key people falling to injury this week, and a few key guys coming back. Why don't you bring us up on the latest as Chicago? Man, poor Chicago. They can't catch a break. Let's start off with them.
Yeah, so you got your mascot getting in a fight, and then but yeah, Corey Crawford towards the end of the first period got in a collision with his teammate Dylan Strome, and his head hit the back of the post, and he had to leave with a concussion and was put on injured reserve today. So yeah, as tough as it's been in Chicago, it's going to get even worse going back to Cam Ward as your number one goalie. And another big injury in Edmonton, Oscar Klefbom, out 6 to 8 weeks with a hand injury, multiple breaks. That's a tough loss for the Oilers, for their number one defenseman. Mike Green out 3 to 5 weeks for Detroit with a lower body injury. Matt Dumba, after getting in a fight in that game with Calgary Flames, he stayed in the game for a little bit, but then he left with an upper body injury and is out at least a week. And he leads all NHL defensemen in goals with 12 this season. So that's a big loss for the Wild on the back end there. A couple guys returning, as I'm trying to remember.
Dallas.
John Klingberg looks like he'll be returning on Thursday for the Dallas Stars after missing the last 17 games with a broken hand, I believe. And Anton Strawman returned for the Tampa Bay Lightning after missing closer to 20 games with an injury that just sort of lingered, and then now he's finally back. Matthew Joseph with the Tampa Bay Lightning was put on injured reserve with a lower body injury. And also a suspension that I'll bring up. The Buffalo Sabres suspended for Patrick Berglund indefinitely after he didn't report to the team for their recent road trip. I think it's been tough for him, as the story was that when he had a no trade clause with St. Louis that ended on July 1st, and he was supposed to give and it switched to a partial no trade clause, but he never gave his teams in. So St. Louis went ahead and traded him to Buffalo, and that would have been one of the teams that he didn't want to get traded to. So it's a bit of a rough patch between the player and the team, even though you think he'd get over it with how well Buffalo's been playing this year. But that's something to keep an eye on if they're going to try to find a way to trade him and give him a fresh start, or if they'll be able to hash things out and get him back in the lineup.
That's an interesting situation to keep an eye on for sure. Who have been your surprise teams so far this year? Maybe give me a couple teams that stand out.
Well, as mentioned, those Buffalo Sabres, that Jack Eichel and Jeff Skinner and Sam Reinhart now on that top line have been amazing. And Rasmus Dahlin has really started to come into his own with Rasmus Ristolainen on that other end. Those five guys have been workhorses for them, as well as the Montreal Canadiens. I would put as a big surprise as well. I think both of us would have had them, I think, closer to the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings as of right now. But yeah, they've had really good resurgences from Max Domi and Jonathan Drouin, and even Andrew Shaw has, I believe, like 20 points in 29 games playing on that line right now. So and Jeff Petrie continues to play well, and getting Shea Weber back has really helped. And then going over to the Western Conference, I would have to say the Edmonton Oilers has been a big surprise because I thought, is this going to be like the same old sort of thing? And it was before they brought in Hitchcock. But Mikko Koskinen has been such a surprise in that. I think a lot of heads were turned when Chiarelli gave him that 1 year, $2.5 million deal for a guy that's only played in the KHL for basically his entire career. But he's been excellent in net. And even before the Canucks finally got a few by him towards the end of the second period, the guy was a giant in net, and it's just like you couldn't find any holes on him. But yeah, those are my big surprises so far this year. But other than that, I think everybody.
My biggest surprise, I think, has been the Calgary Flames. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. They have a plus 29 goal differential with goaltenders that have under a 9 save percentage. Yeah. I'm baffled at that, but they're getting a ton of offense from Monahan, Goudreau,
Lindholm,
and Matt Tkachuk, and Mark Giordano. I think those five are absolutely just tearing it up offensively. And I guess one of my other surprises, Buffalo's definitely one of my surprises, as is Montreal. But one of my other surprises, I'm going to have to go with the Los Angeles Kings, but surprise for another reason.
Yeah.
I didn't think that they'd be this bad. They're definitely struggling, and they're the bottom feeder right now in the Western Conference. They've had a few key injuries to guys. Quick's trying to stay healthy. They fired their coach already. But, man, they just don't look like they have enough juice to compete this year in the NHL. So why don't you give us your final thoughts and words as we wrap up today's show?
Yeah, so I'll have today's highlights on our Facebook page up later tonight. Only 5 games going on tonight, so I'll be able to get them all out but before the end of the night. Comment and leave any questions. If there's a team that we didn't address and you have a question on it, feel free to drop it in the comment section, and we'll answer it. But yeah, other than that, Wednesday we'll be back. I think we're talking about doing sort of a halfway year review of who our favorites are for the Hart Trophy and stuff like that. And then Friday will be our last show of the year, and then we'll be back in the new year once the holidays have passed.
Sounds good. So you can also check us out on our YouTube page. Make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know where you're from, what your favorite team is. And as always, we love bringing you this show. We love bringing you the highlights. I know our fans seem to love the fights a lot as well as the good goals. So anyways, we will see everyone on Wednesday. Everyone have a great start to your week, and we'll see you then.